ownership review of the iPhone 11, and that's in 2020, only a few months before the release of the iPhone 12. My name is Ashish and I usually post videos about products that I use on a daily basis so that you can benefit from some real-world advice. I was a latecomer to the iPhone 11 series bandwagon, but had good reason to do so. Also, I've come back to iOS after 2 years of being an Android user, iPadOS excluded, so I'm in a good position to give you some insights into the Android versus iOS debate. Also, I gathered my thoughts about the iPhone 11 some 2 weeks back, but then I found that as I use the phone more and more, with an eye for the little details, my opinions on certain aspects changed. So, I've taken my time in putting this review together, but hopefully this will solve some of your own dilemmas about your next phone purchase. So let's begin. There will be very little to say about the design of the iPhone 11 that hasn't been said already. It's the mid-size model and slots nicely between the smaller 5.7-inch Pro model and the 6.5-inch Max. That means a very comfortable size without the screen feeling either too big or too small. I like the silent mode toggle switch, a feature that the iPhones have always had, and it's still just as useful. From the front, there's little to distinguish this from the iPhone XR, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. As you will discover in the rest of this review, the iPhone 11 is a phone about relativity. It will seem as good or as bad as the device you compare it to. The headphone jack is sadly missing, and usually this is not an issue nowadays, with most flagships also deleting this feature, and a plethora of wireless earbuds around. But if you come from a phone that still had the jack, as in my case with the S10 Plus, you will miss its presence, even if it's for the rare occasion of plugging in a microphone for recording better audio for your videos. Also, unlike my iPhone 8 Plus, the lightning to headphone adapter is no longer in the box and will need to be purchased separately. On the back, the iPhone logo is now centered as opposed to the XR, and you get two camera lenses, the standard and the ultra wide. Nowadays, with multiple lenses becoming the norm, a single lens just doesn't look good on a phone anymore and hints at some sort of cost cutting. A dual lens phone is still bang in the middle of this pecking order, so it still looks good in this case. I personally really like the pastel yellow of the iPhone 11, and this is one serious advantage it has over the more somber looking Pro models if you want some color to your phone. The fact that it will spend most of its time with me in a case is another matter. I've been using a Spigen screen guard and silicone case with this phone since day one, and if you want to know more about these two products, check out my unboxing video of the iPhone 11. I also tried a frosted case that cost just ₹300 from Amazon, and whilst it does offer the opportunity to show off that pretty yellow color, it's still not as grippy as I would like it to be, so cannot really recommend it. Now let's approach this review from two viewpoints. The first is whether at this point in time in July 2020 the iPhone 11 still makes sense as a new purchase, and second, the whole Android debate, what I think of it having come from an S10 Plus and a OnePlus 6. So you will find references to these two viewpoints further on in this review. Straight off, I will tell you this. If you need a new phone now, this is still an excellent choice. You get the A13 Bionic chip, which is still the fastest mobile CPU in the world, combined with a Pro model matching 4 GB of RAM. So this is as good as it gets in the iOS world in terms of performance. The whole interface is just as reliable and fluid and fast as I last knew it. Small things like the surety and fluidity when going from portrait to full screen landscape video in YouTube still trumps Android phones every time, and reminds me of what makes the iPhone special. Face ID is fast and convenient and reliable most of the time, except when wearing a mask. This now being the new normal makes me wish that Apple should implement the in-display fingerprint scanner sooner rather than later. I still run iOS 13.3 on this and iOS 13.5.1 on my iPad Pro, and the solution of bringing up the passcode sooner when the device detects that you're wearing a mask is one way to approach the problem. I found it to be too eager at times and not looking hard enough for my face, unlike earlier. Battery life is another area that the iPhone 11 excels in. This is one of the primary reasons that I chose to switch from my S10 Plus that had a disappointing battery life. On this phone, getting 8 hours and up of screen on time is no big deal, and I regularly see this kind of stamina. So much so that I don't worry about battery life at all. I still won't call it a 1.5 or 2 day phone, and this is something I never look for in a phone anyway. I always leave it on a charger overnight, and as long as it can make it back to that charger at night with some battery to spare, it's acceptable to me. And the iPhone 11 always finishes the day with lots to spare. A note on the 5-watt charger. It's silly and should not still be in the case, but I don't use it except when I'm traveling, and since the phone is only charged at night, the speed does not matter. In fact, it helps in this scenario by conserving the battery health. I still want a charger in the box though, and I'm completely against the ridiculous idea of there not being a charger in the box, as has been in the news lately. Also, it's high time the iPhone gets a USB Type-C port instead of Lightning. That, instead of removing the charger from the box, will be a step in the right direction to reduce electronic waste. Call quality is as expected very good, no dropped calls, and works very well with Wi-Fi calling, unlike my S10 Plus that just wasn't agreeable with Wi-Fi calling for some reason. You can also use 2 SIM cards now, one being an eSIM. On paper this sounds impressive, but the actual experience is cumbersome. So I was able to transfer my physical Airtel SIM to an eSIM profile on this phone, but this took a few hours. Moreover, text messaging was disabled for 24 hours. Compared to the simple act of swapping physical SIMs, this is tedious and bothersome for someone who travels a lot or changes phones frequently. And then there's the implementation. With my S10 Plus, I had 2 dial buttons when a second SIM was inserted to be able to dial a number quickly from either. Here, I need to select from a drop-down list which SIM card I wish to use, and once an unsaved number has been dialed from one line, it's really tricky to dial from the other. Oh, and by the way, you cannot set a different ringtone for the 2 lines you have. Personally, I think this is inexcusable. There's still a lot of refining Apple needs to do with its dual SIM implementation. Now, sound output via connected devices has always been an iPhone forte. So, whether you use headphones or listen to music via car speakers, the output has the required punch, and even my older car connects and resumes playback with the iPhone much better than it did with any Android phone. However, I cannot say the same for the stereo speakers of the iPhone 11. Now, when we transitioned from single speaker phones to stereo speaker phones, the difference was night and day, and the iPhones of the past, such as my iPhone 8 Plus, sounded head and shoulders above the other Android flagships of the time. But how time has moved on. Since I've been watching videos in slightly noisier environments with the iPhone, I had the feeling that it was not loud enough, and I didn't want to believe that given my previous excellent experience with iPhones and their speakers. But the fact is that it's certainly not as loud or full as my S10 Plus. That phone had decidedly better speakers, and I was able to put a number to this whilst watching a recent comparison video, 104.6 versus 108.2 decibels at maximum volume. Check out this excellent sound comparison video by boredatwork.com if you want more details. Links in the description. Now the cameras, an area where for the most part I feel the iPhone is overrated. Straight up, the video is excellent and the portrait photos are really good, and not having to toggle on night mode in low light photos is great. In outdoor lighting conditions, the cameras produce generally excellent photographs. But that's it. I've come across very few reviews where iPhone cameras are called out for what they are, mediocre at best. My reference for comparison is the S10 Plus, and I can tell you that the S10 Plus produces much more vivid and sharper pictures than the iPhone 11. The iPhone lacks detail most of the time, especially when you zoom in to look at the photographs, and feels to me like a camera that I used to have 5 years ago. Even the S10 Plus's night mode is much better than the iPhone's. Sure, it lights up the scenes a lot more, but then the picture is a lot more usable and sharp. The iPhone's cameras for the most part are lackluster, and really you need to do some post-processing to make them look good. I know all this sounds surprising, but it's the actual truth, and the results speak for themselves. At least the camera shortcut from the home screen is really cool and convenient. It took me a while to figure this out, but once I did, I never wanted to go back to the slide to start implementation. Oh, and I do miss the telephoto camera since I come from a phone that had this. It enabled me to get closer to my cat without spooking her or getting her to start playing with the phone. Other points relating to the current iOS experience. Downloading and updating apps is now much faster and seamless, and the updates happen in the background without any drama. The phone app is quick and dialing a number feels instantaneous. Safari is an excellent web browser and the reader mode on it is as good as ever. However, this is where we come to the relativity aspect that we spoke of earlier. Compared to my S10 Plus, the fonts and text just don't look as good anymore. Combined with the lower resolution display, reading on this device is not as easy as it is on the best Samsung devices. And this comes mainly to your attention when you see them side by side. For example, this is a 4-year-old S7 Edge. Let's look at the same web page on both devices. Compared to the iPhone, even this old Samsung feels eons ahead in terms of display and ease of use. This no doubt reduces eye strain, and people with less than perfect eyesight should give more emphasis to this aspect. The ways and means you can use to make Android devices more accessible are far more and better than the iPhone, without making the text comically large, that is. Another criticism from my side is the 4GB RAM. Now, for the most part, iOS manages memory well and you will have few issues. However, when I fire up my CCTV app that has 9 or 16 concurrent video feeds to play, the iPhone is slower to load and then come back to the app. The S10 Plus always had this in memory and had no problems displaying the cameras. The iPhone occasionally runs out of memory with this app. Even my iPad Pro has only 4GB of RAM and that is starting to feel claustrophobic now. Really, 8GB is a minimum with today's apps, and this should come to the next-gen iPhones sooner rather than later. Now, one important point here. The iPhone still does not support live caller ID in the Truecaller app. Living in a country where spam calls and SMSs are a way of life, having the ability to silence or not answer a spam call is indispensable. The iPhone cannot use third-party SMS apps yet, so you can't use the excellent SMS Organizer app, and live caller ID in Truecaller will only work in certain situations. If someone asked me what I miss the most about Android, it would be these two apps and the way they make your life seamless day to day. In other areas, the news is generally good, and downloading and managing files is now much easier since the Files app was introduced to iOS. The best part about the iPhone experience, if you own other Apple products, are the continuity features. You can start working on any device from where you left off, and you can leave your phone on the charger and take and make calls on your Mac or iPad. You can continue reading that article on your iPhone on your way to work. A file that you save on the iCloud Drive is instantly available to all devices. This also works with Google Drive, and in a way even Android phones can make use of this, except if using Apple's native apps like Pages or Numbers. File sharing via AirDrop is a breeze and is a constant reminder that all is not lost on the iOS front. Now, I must mention the upcoming iOS 14 update that will come this fall along with the new iPhones. Headline features of this include app libraries, widgets, picture-in-picture mode, an offline translate app clips, compact call notifications and Siri, and also the ability to change the default web browser and email apps. This is certainly progress and steps in the right direction, but more than innovation, this is simply Apple playing catch up with what's already available with the competition since many years. So all this was not optional, rather it was about time that all this and more was implemented. I still don't see support for live caller ID in Truecaller, or a better dual SIM dialer, or the ability to assign different ringtones to the two SIMs in the list of features though. So now we've been hearing rumors of the iPhone 12 family, and the best one to have come out is about the smallest of them all, the iPhone 12. With its 5.4-inch screen, will be smaller physically than even the SE. For lovers of small phones, this will be hard to beat. And the whole lineup is getting a refresh in terms of design, with a flatter iPad Pro-like design language. The A14 chip will bring about performance and energy improvements along with other new features. For most people, I would recommend waiting for this generation of phones to arrive, if there is no pressing need to upgrade right now. This is the first major redesign of iPhones since at least 2017 when the iPhone X came out, and in general since 2014 when the current iPhone 6 style design language was adopted. Actually, the more important decision is about the choice of platform. I personally think Android has matured and surpassed iOS in its current form. The best Android flagships, especially ones from Samsung, easily trounce any iPhone in most areas. Really, I will only recommend any iPhone to people who really want all the benefits from the Apple ecosystem. And in the context of India, the iPhone 11 is the one that makes the most sense. The difference in price here between this and the Pro model The smaller one is not $300 as in the other countries, but more than $600, and there isn't enough value in those phones to justify that price. Personally, it took me time to warm up to the iPhone 11. Continuity features is what I appreciate most about it when using it every day alongside my Mac and iPad, but it's the little things that make the experience stand out. Somehow, the apps work better than they do on Android, and there is a general consistency around the whole phone that is missing on most Android flagships. I could be browsing any website, and then when I enter full screen mode on an embedded video, the iPhone always transitions smoothly to full screen, and it's the same type of video player that greets you. This level of deep level software optimization is what most Android phones can only dream of. So, in a nutshell, buy an iPhone 11 only if you need an iPhone now. Do not buy the Pro models at this stage. We're now too close to the iPhone 12 launch, and the Pro models will lose huge amounts when it comes to resale. Although we're looking at a higher segment than the iPhone SE, I would recommend the XR instead of that phone to most people, if your budget can stretch to that. The difference in price is not that much, and the experience is a lot better overall in terms of newer tech like Face ID and a much better battery life. If you can wait, then, as per your requirements, choose one of the iPhone 12 models from later this year. I am currently most inclined towards the small iPhone 12 at the moment, as long as the battery penalty is not too punitive on that model. And for the rest, give a serious look on the Android side. You will have an equally enriching experience and will be able to customize the interface to take out the hassle that comes with having a phone or a phone number in a country where databases are sold for marketing purposes regularly. Let me know if this review surprised you, but to me, the iPhone has slipped to mediocrity from just as recently as 2018, when I would call it the best phone in the world even when using an Android phone. This does not mean that I'm going back to an Android anytime soon, but when I see how the iPad is evolving into the best all-in-one computing solution from the future, it pains me that the iPhone has started losing out on some of the basics. It's still a premium thing to hold and use, but the shortcomings are becoming more and more glaring. But at the end of the day, everything is relative. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe if you like this content. If this review helped you in your purchase decision, I would love to hear from you in the comments, so I can steer the direction of my future videos. See you in my next one.